Hi, I'm David. In this Harris Academics video, we're going to cover the important secretions of each portion of the GI tract. Then, we'll cover where each macromolecule begins digestion, and we'll wrap things up with a quick review. To refresh, remember your three macromolecules are carbohydrates made out of sugar, fats made out of lipids, and proteins made out of amino acids. So let's take it from the top. Your oral cavity produces salivary amylase, and amylases are responsible for breaking down carbohydrates into simple sugars like glucose. Next up, your stomach produces several things worth noting. For these secretions, it's important to know which cells produce each secretion. Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Hydrochloric acid, abbreviated HCl, is responsible for two activities in the gastric cavity. Firstly, it denatures proteins, which means to unfold them. Additionally, hydrochloric acid is responsible for the activation of pepsinogen by converting it into its active form, pepsin. The intrinsic factor assists with vitamin B12 absorption in the small intestines. Now, if you're pursuing a career in nursing, you'll see this come up again, because low B12 results in pernicious anemia. So, think to yourself, less intrinsic factor means less vitamin B12, which means less red blood cells. Chief cells secrete pepsinogen and gastric lipase. The inogen suffix means that our chemical is in its inactive state. You may see something similar to this if you've learned about the conversion of angiotensinogen into the active form angiotensin. Well, once pepsinogen is converted into its active state, pepsin, it breaks the peptide bonds which hold proteins together, breaking them down into individual amino acids. Lipases break down fat macromolecules, like triglycerides. So this one is named gastric lipase because it breaks down the fat macromolecules in the stomach. Mucus cells produce mucin. Mucin is responsible for lining the stomach and forming a protective layer. Disruption of the mucin layer is one of the causes of gastric ulcers. Lastly, G cells produce gastrin. Now, gastrin is actually a hormone that the stomach uses to stimulate itself. Gastrin increases the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. Gastrin also increases the motility of the stomach, causing a mixing or a churning motion inside of the stomach. The liver's main role in digestion is the secretion of bile. Now, the gallbladder is a small bladder located underneath the liver which stores bile and then releases it into the duodenum, or the first section of the small intestine. Bile's responsibility is to neutralize the acids coming from the stomach. It emulsifies fats to help aid in digestion, and it also serves as a way to waste the bilirubin which comes from the liver. Bilirubin is what's left over from broken red blood cells, filtered from the blood. The pancreas secretes quite a few products, but the important products that you really need to know are really insulin, glucagon, and generically digestive enzymes. So insulin, firstly, is responsible for lowering blood glucose levels. Glucagon, the counterpart to insulin, raises blood glucose levels. Now, the pancreas secretes an army of digestive enzymes which complete the digestive process as food moves along your small intestine. Now, these include pancreatic lipases, pancreatic amylases, and proteolytics, which break down proteins. But I would not recommend learning each of the individual proteolytic enzymes. Now let's talk about where each macromolecule starts to undergo its digestion. Carbohydrates are easy to remember because as soon as you put food in your mouth, they encounter salivary amylase. So, carbohydrates or sugars begin digestion in the oral cavity. Important note, your oral cavity also has lingual lipase. It's secreted by your tongue, but it's in negligible amounts. So go with your curriculum on this because many disregard lingual lipase as being significant to the digestive process. So gastric lipase is the first significant form of lipases that your food encounters. So the fat macromolecules truly begin digestion in the stomach. Proteins also begin their digestion in the stomach when they encounter hydrochloric acid and pepsin. Digestion finishes in the small intestines as they soak in the pancreatic enzymes. And that about wraps us up. If you stuck with me to the end, then you now know the secretions of each portion of the GI tract, what those secretions do, and where each macromolecule begins digestion. References for this video are from McKinley O'Loughlin's Anatomy and Physiology, 3rd edition. Music is by Harris Heller. Titles pack is from The Modern Filmmaker. Sound design was made using assets created and provided by Andrew Huang. And a special thanks to Sophia Myers for the design and animation of Florence.